Hey there nation, welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander CheapSkate, and we are back with another episode of Saga of the 8Points. This is our series of battle reports dedicated to Warhammer Age of Sigmar Warcry, and this is battle report number 6, the swap between my buddies Dark Lord Mac as well as myself. So in case the introduction music didn't give it away, Dark Lord Mac is participating in our little series of Warcry battle reports. He is playing a 1000 point Ironjawz warband called the Immortulz, and he's bringing the fight to me, my Lords of Azure Skies, my 1000 point Stormcast Eternals army. So I've been looking forward exactly to this fight for a long time. Both the Stormcast Eternals as well as the Ironjaws have really high toughness, really high wound counts. They also have very devastating close combat attacks and pretty awesome abilities. So I'm really looking forward to this battle report. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to play some background music real quick. If you want to see exactly what we're bringing for each of our warbands, go ahead and pause and take a look at your own leisure. So with that being said, let's get this battle report on a roll.
Crom, I've never prayed you before. I have no tongue for it. No one, not even you, will remember if we were good men or bad. Why we fought, or why we died. No. All that matters is that two stood against many. That's what's important. Balor pleases you, Crom. So grant me one request. Grant me revenge. And if you do not listen, then the hell with you.
Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about the scenario rules real quick. For the deployment, we have Clash of Blades on this deployment. On this deployment, both myself as well as Dark Lord Mac will be able to deploy our dagger as well as our hammer units. However, our shield units will remain off and to the side, and they will not come in until round number 2 of the battle report. Meanwhile, the victory conditions for this scenario is called Conquer, and basically what the goal of the objective is that we will have to see who's attacker, who's defender. In this case, my buddy Dark Lord Mac is the defender, and I am the attacker in this scenario. My objective is to try to kill Dark Lord Mac's hammer units and try to defeat them before the end of round number 4. If by the end of round number 4, Dark Lord Mac has at least one hammer unit still alive, I lose the scenario and he actually ends up winning. Now, just like other previous type of scenarios where you actually target deployment types, if the hammer units go within 4 inches of a table edge by the end of a battle round, they immediately count as being dead. Which is going to be kind of tough for my buddy Dark Lord Mac because Ironjaws only have movement 3 as standard, so these guys are pretty slow. And then lastly, to make matters even worse for my buddy Dark Lord Mac, the twist on this one is called Murky Swampland. What ends up happening is that all the fighters who are on the battlefield floor -1 to their movement characteristics. So now Ironjaws are now movement 2, and my Stormcast Eternals are now movement 3. Except for flying units, which is not such a big deal for me because I only have one of those guys. So with the scenario rules over, let's go and talk about the battle plan real quick. Alright, so here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. My buddy Dark Lord Mac is deployed on the left-hand side, whereas my forces are deployed on the right-hand side. And like I said before, my objective here is to take out his 2 hammer units. He has 2 of his Ironjaws are located on the top upper left-hand corner. Those are both of his hammer units that are deployed up there on the top. Those are the guys I'm going to have to try to kill, which is going to be kind of hard for my buddy Dark Lord Mac because he's got to move these guys as quickly as he possibly can away from the table edge. Because if they're within 4 inches of it, they automatically die. So that could be all kinds of bad for him as well. Those 2 characters I'm trying to kill, our name is Tranka Bone Cruncha as well as Drog Mean Eye. Tranka Bone Cruncha, he's a brute with a jagged gore hacka, while Drog Mean Eye is an Ardboy with a big chopper. So those are the 2 guys I'm going after there at the top. So pretty much my plan is to surround him, and basically just surround my opponent, outflank him, and hopefully I can engage his hammer units and destroy him that way. If I'm really lucky, I could use my long strike crossbowman in order to do it, but you know, he doesn't enter it until round number 2. So with the battle plan over with, we go directly to the top of deployment and we talk about exactly where all the forces are located at. Alright, first of all, we're going to talk about the Stormcast Eternals deployment zone right here in the middle of the screen. Those are my hammer units. Those are my 2 characters. That is Bailey and Swiftsteel, who's in the back. He's my Hunter Prime, who's also the leader of my warband. And right in front of him is Murky and Sunhelm, another Vanguard Hunter, who's also a member of my hammer deployment. Deployed near the top of my deployment area is my dagger units. Up in the front there, that is Kato's Shadow Step. He is a Vanguard Hunter. And right next to him is Tullia's Virtus, who is another Vanguard Hunter as well. And that makes up my dagger deployment for this scenario. And finally, we have my shield deployment group. This consists of Samus Stormsight. He's my Long Strike Raptor, as well as my Aether Wing Horus, and he's also located there as well. And that pretty much makes up my deployment for this one. Alright, so with my deployment over with, we go directly to Dark Lord Mac for his Immortulz for the Ironjaws. Making up his dagger deployment, that is Draka Head Stompa. That is a brute with 2 brute choppas, and he's located right smack dab in the middle of the battlefield. This guy is going to be very difficult to kill because he has toughness of 5 as well as 25 wounds. Now the only advantage I have, of course, is that he can only go movement 2 because of the swampy effect that's taking place in the battlefield. Normally he's movement 3, but now he's movement 2, which is pretty awesome for me. So I can dance around this guy, but not by much. I only beat him by an inch. And finally, he has his deployment hammer for his hammer group up here on the top of the deployment screen. On the right hand side, that is Tronka Bone Cruncher. He's a brute armed with a jagged gore hacka, and he's also got toughness 5, 25 wounds, so that's going to be a mean nut to crack for that one. And right next to him on the left hand side, that is Drog Minai. He is an Ard boy with a big choppa. He's toughness 4, so still nothing to slouch about. He's also got 15 wounds as well. And those are the 2 hammer units that I need to kill for this scenario. And finally, for his shield deployment, it's deployed in the upper right hand corner. Up on the top, that is Saga, the Black Fist. That is a brute boss with claw as well as a brute smasher. That is the leader of this warband. Right next to him, that is Scrug Death Scroll. He is a Ard boy with a choppa as well as a smasher, so he's just a normal Ard boy on that one. And right beneath him, the third guy, that is Grok Rocknut. He's an Ard boy with a choppa as well as a shield. And that guy's kind of tough for a Ard boy because he's got toughness of 5 on this one. But like I said before, all these guys are movement 3 standard, and with the Murky Swampland that's taking place, they're all movement 2. So maneuverability is a little bit in my favor because I do move faster than these guys. So with deployment over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 1, and Dark Lord Mac and I roll off for our priority phase and see exactly who goes first. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top of turn number 1 after the priority phase, and the Stormcast Eternals will be going first on this one. As you can see in this photo, I ended up with 3 singles, while my friend Dark Lord Mac only had 1. However, Dark Lord Mac does have a quad ability, which is value at 5, and he's also got a pair, which is valued at 4. Meanwhile, I got 2 pairs, one for 2 points and the other one for 5 points. As you can see, Dark Lord Mac decided to use his wild dice in order to give himself a pair, and I did exactly the same thing with myself as well. So with the priority phase over with, we skip reserve phase for right now, and we go directly to the combat phase. Alright, so we go directly to the combat phase on this one. The first person I activate, first of all, is Kato's Shadow Step, and I use the Vanguard Hunter's ability, Tireless Hunter, to make him move up his normal 4-inch movement. And the reason why I do that is because I need to move up 4 inches in order to get within range of my crossbow. So because that puts me directly 8 inches directly into his brute with the 2 choppas, Draka Head Stompa, and I open up with my crossbow on that guy. Managed to put 8 wounds on him, which was actually pretty admirable considering I was shooting at long range and I wasn't really closing the distance for him. So that part was pretty epic. At the same time, Dark Lord Mac then activates Tronka Bone Cruncher, his brute with a jagged gore hacka, and what he does is he actually spends both of his actions doing double movements phases, moving up forward 4 inches. He climbs up to 3 inches onto the top of the structure there, also moves 1 inch forward away from the edge. That way he's within 5 inches away from the table edge, just barely out of the reach of the border edge, so that way his hammer character is still alive by the end of the turn. Meanwhile, I carry on my assault as well, moving up Tullius Virtus. I actually move up his normal 3 inches movement allowance as well, so he's within range of using his crossbow. So I have him open fire with that. I'll manage to put 1 more additional wound onto Draka Head Stompa, so that guy is now carrying 9 wounds. And Dark Lord Mac also activates Drog Minai, his Arboy the Big Choppa, the last of his hammer units. He actually spends no movement to move up 6 inches up the top of those stairs, so that way he's outside the 4-inch range of the table edge as well. And I feel really bad for my buddy Dark Lord Mac because the Murky Swampland abilities really kind of mess with him on this one because he won't be able to move as quickly as he normally would otherwise. Well, not really move quickly, I mean they only got a 3-inch move, but it's a lot better than 2 inches if you ask me. Up next, I activate Meridian Sunhelm. I also once again use the Tireless Hunter ability to move him up 3 additional inches forward, so because that he moves up forward 6 inches, that puts him within 8-inch range for him to open his crossbow, and of course I put enough wounds on him to even out an even 10 onto Draka Head Stompa. So that guy only has 15 wounds left before he ends up being killed. At the same time, my opponent decides to activate Draka Head Stompa. I believe he uses the one called Rampager's ability, where the character gets an additional movement as well as additional attack as well. So he moves up normal as 3-inch movement allowance, then he also gets an additional movement on top of that, making another 2 inches forward. Actually puts it within good closing distance between himself as well as Meridian Sunhelm. And then spends his last action, of course, attacking me at the same time. Managed to put 12 wounds onto my hunter right off the bat. So because of that, I'm sorry, I do apologize, that's Balian Swiftsteel, my leader. So he managed to put 12 wounds right on top of him. So Balian Swiftsteel does have 30 wounds, but at the same time though, that's 12 that's now gone, and that's just from one fighter moving forward and just unleashing hell upon him. So I gotta tell you, Ironjawz, man, those guys can put out a hurting really, really bad. And for my final activation, I then tap Meridian Sunhelm. That's the character I tap next. He moves up to double movement allowance right behind Balian Swiftsteel, so that way he can close the distance and hopefully get involved with Drak Headstompa, and I can kill that brute with the 2 brute choppas. And that's pretty much what my plan is for this one. So with all of our characters moving over with, that brings us directly to the end of turn number 1. So here's an overhead shot at the end of turn number 1. As you can see, I am starting to push the advance forward with my dagger as well as my hammer units, converging to the center of the battlefield at the same time. While that's occurring, my buddy Dark Lord Mac is sending in Draka Headstompa, his brute with 2 brute choppas, and he's starting to take the pain directly to Balian Swiftsteel, my leader, so that part's kind of rough. And at the same time, he slowly but surely moved his 2 hammer units, Tronka, Bone Cruncha, as well as Drog Minai, moves them just out of range of the table edge, so that way they can survive for this round and not have to worry about being killed. And that pretty much ends up round number 2. I'm sorry, round number 1 rather. So at the end of battle round number 1, we go directly to the top of turn number 2, and my friend Dark Lord Mac and I roll off for priority phase to see who will be going first. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top of turn number 2, and once again, I managed to take the initiative on this one. I win priority. As you can see from our dice here, my friend Dark Lord Mac ended up getting a triple with 5 as the value, as well as 2 doubles, 1 for 3, 1 for 4. At the same time, I also earn a quad. I decided to use my wild dice in order to secure that one, so it's a quad value with only 1. I also earn a double of 6, and I have 1 single, which of course nets me the priority on this one. So with priority phase over with, we go directly to the reserve phase. Alright, so during the reserve phase, I finally bring in my shield units. I bring in Samus Stormsight as well as Horus, my Aether Wing. I bring them directly as close as I possibly can on my deployment area to get as close as I can to my buddy Dark Lord Mac's hammer units, because I'm going to do some long range shooting with that Long Strike Raptor, and hopefully I can plink off a guy or 2 during the course of this turn. And that pretty much makes up my reserve activation phase. And at the same time, Dark Lord Mac brings on his 3 fighters from his shield deployment. That is Saga the Black Fist, his Brute Boss with Claw and Brute Smasher. He also brings in Grok Rocknut, which is his Ardboy with a Choppa as well as a shield, and also Scrug Death Skull, his Ardboy with Choppa as well as Smasher. And he brings them in as close as he possibly can to get towards my Stormcast Eternals, because just like me, he's going to try to engage my fighters as quickly as he possibly can. So with the reserve phase over with, we go directly to the combat phase. Alright, so the very first thing I do for my activation phase, I activate Samus Stormsight, and I use my quad ability, all 4 ones, in order to use the aimed strike ability for Long Strike Raptors. What you do for that ability is you take the ability value of the dice and you add that to the damage, as well as the critical damage from each attack made from the fighter during this activation. So during this time, I actually opened up with 2 shots. I actually managed to hit that character, Tronka Bone Cruncher, Drog Minai, the Ardboy, the Big Choppa. I actually managed to hit him twice. One was a critical hit, netting me 11 damage, and the second one was a normal hit, which is netting me another 5 damage as well. So then total that brought us to 16 wounds. So needless to say, that one shot drug Minai right off the table. So because of that Ardboy with the Big Chop is now dead, and that's one less hammer deployment fighter I need to worry about for this scenario. Alright, so meanwhile, my opponent, Dark Lord Mac, then decides to activate the Wah ability off onto his character, Saga Blackfist. The Wah ability is a triple value, and what you do is you take the value of the ability dice and add it to the movement characteristic of all friendly fighters within 6 inches of the leader, and that's occurring to the bed of the battle round, which is actually really good for my opponent, because now he can use that to add to his ability so that way he can move as quickly as he can across the battlefield. So because of that, that's exactly what he does for his activation. Alright, so because that Wah ability does go off, what ends up going on is happening is that the character Ardboy with a shield, that's Grok Rutnuk, he actually adds 5 to his movement allowance and actually moves forward, I think 7 inches across the battlefield directly into Kato's Shadow Step. Now because that was his first action, for his second action he activates ability, which is unique to the Ardboy with shield, and that's called Shield Bash. And what ends up happening is that so long as you end up within an inch of an enemy fighter, you roll a d6. On a 4 to 5 you cause 1 damage, and on a 6 you actually cause that much in ability damage. In this case, my buddy Dark Lord Mac rolled a perfect 6, so he managed to put 4 wounds directly onto Kato's Shadow Step. And I could just see that too, imaginatively, just this Ardboy just charging across this swamp and just smashing face first Skyrim style directly into my fighter, so that part was pretty awesome. So for my next activation, I do activate Horus, who does a normal 12-inch movement directly into Draka Headstompa. He also attacks him as well with his talons, only netting him 2 wounds on that part. So it's not really impressive, but it's just enough just to, cause some problems for that brute with 2 brute choppas. Makes you feel kind of good inside. Meanwhile, my opponent, Dark Lord Mac, then activates Skrog Death Skull, who moves forward 7 inches forward because of the Wa ability, and it gets within pretty close range to my other character, Tullius Virtus. The only problem is he's out of range for the attack, so he decides to spend one of his abilities for his very first movement, and that ability, of course, is Charge, which is an Ironjawz ability. And what ends up happening is that you can only use it if there's another enemy fighter within 6 inches of your fighter that you activate, in which this case, Tullius Virtus was definitely within 6 inches. And what ends up happening, he actually makes a bonus move action forward, so that way he ends up closer towards the opponent. He only needed to be within 2 inches in order to do it, and he exactly did that. So because of that, he was able to use his last action in order to attack. He managed to put 4 wounds onto Tullius Virtus, so that part was actually kind of crazy. So, sensing blood in the wind, I decide to activate Kato's Shadow Step. He actually attacks, and I actually spend 2 of my dice for my ability to get him the additional attack that he needs to go up against Grucknut. And by the time it was all done, I managed to actually put 10 wounds onto that guy. I believe one of my attacks was a critical attack as well, while the other 2, I believe... no, actually, I'm sorry. I got 2 criticals, and I think I got 2 normal hits. No, 1 normal hit and 2 criticals. That's what it was. So Zay actually put 10 wounds onto that Ardboy, which is kind of nice because now he's 2/3 of the way dead because our boys only carry 15 wounds, so that part was pretty epic. So, in typical orc fashion, my buddy Dark Lord Mac decides to activate Tronka Bone Cruncher, and instead of having him run away to try to survive as long as he can, he decides he's going to take his brute and actually move him up forward to get within range to start doing combat. Unfortunate for him though, he only has a double wound allowance of 4 inches. It was enough for him to walk off the edge of the platform and also to move up an inch towards my Stormcast Eternals. So he won't be able to attack this turn, but it's just kind of like your typical Ironjaw fashion. Ironjaws don't run, they break things, and he just kind of charges forward in order to finish off the job, and I thought that part was kind of cool. Meanwhile, activate Tullius Virtus, I direct all my attacks directly into Skrog Death Skull. Unfortunate for me though, I just pretty much flubbed my rolls. The only thing I was able to do is put 2 wounds on that Ardboy. So basically I just sneezed in the guy's face and he's slightly offended because that's about as effective as my attacks were during that round. Alright, so then as going up next, my opponent then activates his leader, Saga the Black Fist, and that guy actually moves up forward 7 inches because of his Wa ability, and that actually put him within 1 inch in order to attack my character, Meridius Sunhelm, in which case it then does attack with his Brute Smasher. It managed to put 4 wounds directly onto my character, so that part was kind of sad to see that happen. 2 of his attacks were normal attacks, and they managed to get through. So that part was kind of sad. In exchange, I then activated Meridius Sunhelm and then counterattack directly against Saga the Black Fist. I managed to put 4 wounds on that guy as well. So these 2 guys are kind of trading blows one against the other. The only problem that I have to face though is that Saga the Black Fist, the brute boss, has 35 wounds. He actually beats the amount of wounds that my character, Balian Swiftstride, actually has. His character has 30 and this guy's got 35. So that part is absolutely crazy. So with that pretty much ends up all the activation, and that takes us directly to the end of the turn. Alright, so here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, it's ending up being just one massive bloody sprawl right in the smack dab in the middle of the battlefield. We got Ironjaws and Stormcast Eternals just throwing it down in the boggy mess that is the middle of the battlefield. Everybody is packing wounds at this point, everyone's just bleeding all over the place, which is basically on par for what Ironjaws do in close combat. So that part is kind of neat as well. So with the end of turn number 2, we go directly to the top of turn number 3. Dark Lord Mac and I roll off in the priority phase to see who will be going first. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top of turn number 3, and the Stormcast Eternals managed to get the initiative on this one again. As you can see in this one, I managed to get a quad off of 6 this time. I used one of my wild dice in order to make that triple into a quad, so that part was kind of cool, and I also got 3 singles as well. My friend Dark Lord Mac, though, he ended up with 2 sets of doubles, which is double 1s as well as double 4s. He decides to take his 3rd set of doubles, which are double 5s, and decides to make it into a triple, adding 5 to that value of that ability. So that's the priority phase over with. So priority phase over with, we skip reserve phase because there's no reserves left, and we immediately go to the combat phase. And in the combat phase, the first person I activate is Samus Storm's Sight, and because of that I do have line of sight from Samus Storm's Sight all the way straight up across the battlefield to Tronka Bone Crusher. I decide to activate his first ability, his quad ability called Aim Strike, and because it is a 6, basically I add 6 to the value of that ability to all the damage that he does. So even if I do manage to land a normal shot, I'll be causing 10 wounds, and if I manage to get a critical hit, I'll get 16 off the bat. So because of that, I open fire directly into Tronka, and not only do I manage to hit him twice as well, I also managed to get a critical wound off as well as a normal wound, and that was more than enough actually to kill Tronka the Bone Crusher. So because of that, I do manage to kill off his very last of Dark Lord Mac's hammer units on this scenario. And as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, that takes us directly to the end of the game, with the Stormcast Eternals netting the win on this one with a dramatic long-range shot from Stamma's Source Site. So that's good to do it for this one, you guys. We're going to go directly to the After Action report, because this battle report is now officially over.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Sure, I could have stayed in the past. Could have even been king. But in my own way, I am king. Hail to the king, baby.
Alright people, now it's time for the After Action report. This is part of the battle report. We talk about what went well, what went poorly, and what we can learn for the next time that we do battle. This is the After Action report for Saga the 8 Points, battle report number 6, and this one ended a victory for yours truly. For our losses, I actually lost none of the members of my warband. I took a lot of damage, but I didn't lose anybody. However, Dark Lord Mac, he lost Tronka Bone Cruncher, as well as Drog Mean Eye. And the reason why I won this battle report is for one simple reason, that is Long Strike Raptors. Those guys are the best long-range shooter element in this gaming system. It's like having a piece of war machinery or artillery on the battlefield. It's pretty awesome. And looking back on this past performance, I'm actually thinking about changing my warband a little bit, maybe getting rid of a Vanguard Hunter or two, so that way I can get another Long Strike Raptor, because those guys are super deadly when it comes to long-range shooting. Samus Stormsight, my Long Strike Raptor, won me this battle report, taking out both Tronka Bone Crusher as well as Drog Mean Eye within 2 rounds of combat, netting me the victory over his hammer units. Another factor I believe that also led me to a victory in this battle report was the Murky Swampland twist. What this did is it actually reduced Dark Lord Mac's movement to 2 inches for all of his units, which basically means that your standard run-of-the-mill dwarves were much faster than Ironjaws in this case, because of the severe limitations to their movement allowance from the twist on this one. I feel that if Dark Lord Mac had his full range of movement, he would have taken the fight to me much sooner. It would have caused a lot of problems for my units and caused all kinds of problems by just beating my Stormcast Eternals to death, for lack of a better word. Also, Ironjaws, these guys are extremely dangerous warband to fight against, in my opinion. They have excellent toughness, awesome wounds, and their damage output is simply ridiculous. They make them a real significant threat against my warband, and I can't even imagine what would happen if Ironjaws went on to fight any of the normal warbands that you normally see throughout Warcry as well. And with that, all that being said, in the end, this was a very fun game against an awesome opponent against Dark Lord Mac, and as always, I am looking forward to playing against him in any rematch any day, because he's a cool guy to play against. That's good to do for this one, you guys. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest and greatest hobby news on this channel. That's good to do for this one, you guys. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.